and welcome to Flosstube episode something, I don't know. Welcome back if you're a regular viewer, welcome if you're here for the first time. Sorry, I just realised you can't see my whole t-shirt. It says, keep calm and rain on. So it was a Platinum Jubilee t-shirt, but I think it's something I can wear at almost every occasion. I think it's kind of brilliant. So keep calm and rain on. I am here today to tell you about my current state of play with cross stitch. I've got a sort of final finish of an object that you've seen before many times. I've got some sort of part finishes, some works in progress, a little bit of haul, a lot of plans, and a little bit of sewing. So stay tuned for all of that. First of all, I want to show you this. So you have seen this before. This is my Pringles can project, Life is the Most Wonderful Fairy Tale. It's got this, which I'm really proud of, this kind of almost invisible seam where the pattern continues. And what I have done since you have last seen it is I've worked out, I was going to put a ribbon around the bottom here where I'd measured the height wrong and glued it on wrong. And then I had an order come in from Wool Warehouse for some yarn, and in order to get free postage I had needed to add a little bit to my order, so I'd ordered various trims. I got this, I got they're not here, I got a little bit of red pom-pom trim and some red rickrack, and then I just, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's going to be perfect. So you can see I've stuck it on and it just fills that gap perfectly at the bottom. And then to match it, I put some on at the top, but I stuck that on horizontally. So it makes a really nice opening. And I think it just goes enough together so that matches that, but it's not quite the same and it doesn't dominate and it doesn't hide any of the stitching at the top either. In there, you'll remember, there's a pin cushion and a tape measure, a little pair of thread clips, and then in the inside of the lid I used the red pom-pom trim, slightly different kind of trim, and I like the way that's worked out. I think in future, if I were to do this, I would try and put in some rickrack before I glued the two parts of the lid together, but I think I'm pretty happy with how that works as it stands. So that is now properly finished and in use, and it works really nicely. It just sits with me wherever I'm stitching, and then I've always got needles on the needle minder, thread clips, pins, tape measure, ready to go. So very pleased with that. I haven't got any other actual finishes, but I have been working on a couple of things for my mini menagerie small and great project. So I'm stitching a whole lot of little animals on separate pieces of fabric. Some of these you've seen before. Started off with this bee with the fuzzy bottom, and the plan is to make them into a little book. Anyway, I've got a few of those that I've done, I think, since I last saw you. This is the Flurry of Flamingos. This is from the most recent issue. I think it's the most recent issue. I think it's the most recent issue, but a recent issue of X Stitch magazine, in the Can You Design Me This section. And someone said, can you design me some flamingos? I really like those. I think that's maybe the biggest design I've stitched for this project so far. I've also stitched much smaller. When it stops floating around, let's hold that so it's not flapping, and then maybe it'll focus. Little mini frog. This, like most, you'll see how mini that is. There we go, let's put my finger there. Like most of the projects in this so far is from the Emma Congdon book, Cross Stitch for the Earth. And you'll remember I've talked about this before. They're mostly quite big designs in the book, and not things that I would necessarily want to do the whole thing or have on my wall. In fact, I remember now, I think I said this last time, I was going to explain why, and then I never did. And the reason is just, I don't want my cross stitch to tell me off or to tell me things to do. And a lot of those sort of designs, I mean, in a nice sort of way, but nonetheless, they do that. Let me just read out some of the slogans and you'll see what I mean. They say, take care of the earth and the earth will take care of you. I'm like, oh, okay. Unplug and go outside. Well, maybe I want to stay in and cross stitch today. Pardon the weeds, we're feeding the beads. I mean, all right, fair enough. You can have that one. Be kind to all that live. I mean, I think that's a good thing to do. Be kind to all that live. But do you see what I mean? There's just a lot of sort of being told what to do. Don't drop trash in the splash. I mean, don't, but you know, yeah. So I don't really want a wall full of slogans telling me how to live my life, even if I agree with how to live my life. But I really like the designs in the book. I like all of Emma Congdon's designs. I think her aesthetic is exactly my aesthetic. And a lot of these designs come with little motifs that are easy to take out and stitch on their own, including this little frog. So I've stitched it over one. I stitched the sort of water around him over two, just with half cross stitch. But the main frog itself is stitched 1 over 1 full cross stitch on those little lily pads. So that's that, flamingos and the frog. And I also did, and this again is from the Emma Congdon book, a little tiny hedgehog and snail. I mean, it's really tiny. I don't know if it's going to focus on that. Let's try a bit more. Don't know, you'll have to take my word for it. I got a little bit carried away with the hedgehog. So the hedgehog is supposed to be stitched in cross stitch with little straight stitches to indicate the spines, and I got a bit carried away doing the straight stitches. So mine, yeah, you can't really see in the spiny section any remnants of the cross stitch that I promise is really there underneath. Anyway, there we go. I don't know if that's focused. It's very small and very adorable. So that's 3 more on those. I think I've done, how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've done 8, 7, 8. Yes. I've done 8. The plan, as I say, is to make a little book out of these. I might do another 4, I might do another 8, something like that, and then see if I can put it. The plan that I have for how I'm going to make the book should make it relatively easy to add in or take out more pages if I decide to do that. So yeah, so that's something I've been working on. I've also done this. Let's find something to put behind that. So it's just a little alphabet in a circle in 3 different colourways. These are all classic colourworks. I can't remember the names of the colours offhand. And I've got, this is a design that I have been working on, and I've got a little sort of circular flowery border designed that I plan to put there. And then I've also been thinking about maybe doing 3 others, or maybe 3 in total, to make a little series of slightly sort of seasonal things. So one would have a flowery border for the summer, one would have a sort of autumnal border with leaves and maybe acorns and things, and then I'm not quite sure for a springy one or a wintry one, maybe some snowflakes and that kind of thing. And then I've charted out an uppercase alphabet, capital letters, one with numbers and symbols, and I'm not quite sure what I would do in a 4th one, which is why I'm not sure if there will be 4 or 3. I am wondering about making these a design that's available for purchase, or even potentially submitting them as a design to a cross-stitch magazine. I think the idea is that they would be interchangeable, so you could choose whether you wanted the lowercase alphabet, the uppercase alphabet, numbers and symbols, or chart your own, and then choose whatever seasonally appropriate border you wanted to go with it. So they're only going to be little. This is on 22 count hard anger, and I think it's going to work out about 4 inches in diameter. So you could easily stitch a whole set of 4, or you could just stitch 1 and frame it in a little hoop and be done with it. So I'm just going to show you the alphabet of that, but there is more in that chart. And well, I've got one more thing I'm going to show you that I've been working on, but I have also been working on some more designs that I will talk to you about as well a little bit, though some of it is still super secret. So this is the other thing I've been, well, I've also been working on my big sampler. I'm not going to show you the big sampler. You've seen that before. There are photos on my Instagram feed. It's a bit of a palaver to bring over and film. But I've also been working on this. I talked to you about this before. This is the Doreen Jones travel set from the July issue, maybe. It's the one that came out in June. I think maybe it's the August issue. I don't really understand magazines. Anyway, from a recent issue of World of Cross Stitch magazine, it's her travel set. I've changed up all the colours, and I am really, really enjoying stitching this. I've just finished stitching that little bit of fabric. I've done the hoop and the scissors and the buttons. One of the things I like about this is even if I've only got 10 minutes, I can stitch a little button and feel like I've made progress. Stitching the thread swirls is pretty quick and easy. So although there are sections like the fabric or the hoop or the scissors, which are a bit bigger and take a bit longer, there are also things you can do very quickly and get a really quick win on it. I have made some changes. I'm changing all the colours. I've changed slightly the design of the fabric, and oh, the thing which I think I am going to go back and do, actually, I'd used this brown for the spool and the end of that little bobbin. But now that I've done the fabric, I think actually what I want to do is go back and take those out, take the brown sections out, and replace it with one of the much paler threads that I've used in the fabric. So they look a bit more like white bobbins and white spools. So yeah, so then, you know, next is going to be a sort of full skein of floss across here, finish this hoop, and then the design repeats. So after the hoop is completed, the scissors start again about here. So I've done, I guess, about half of the first repeat, and I plan to go across the whole width of the fabric that I have got. And then this is going to be finished into a sort of travel cross stitch thing with space for flosses and scissors and needles and threads and so on. There's a separate design which I think I'm going to try and work into the finished project as well, that has a sort of banner that says cross stitch stash across the front. So this is going to take a little while, but it's fun. It's really fun. I'm really enjoying doing all the colour choices. Like, I think I'm going to do this spool of floss across here, skein of floss across here in orange, and then there's going to be some more green and pink and yellow and all sorts. So I really like that pattern. Doreen Jones, World of Cross Stitching. Right, I think that is all the cross stitch that I have been working on. Let's do a little bit of haul next. So I signed up to a thread club. Lakeside Needlecraft in the UK offer a number of thread clubs that you can sign up for different dyers and thread companies. And I've signed up for the Classic Colourworks Thread Club. The way it works is you sign up, you put it in your checkout, you pay nothing, feels a bit weird, and then on the 1st of every month, I think, more or less, you get an invoice from them to say, this is your thread club for the month, and once you've paid your invoice, they send it to you. That way, for them, they never send out thread that you haven't paid for, which I think is a good thing for them, but also it means you're really in control of your subscription if you don't want to do that. So I signed up for the Classic Colourworks Thread Club. I have a number of Classic Colourworks threads already on this floss drop, but I noticed that I was only buying certain kinds of colours because they're my favourites. fine. But like I said, I have been doing a little bit of designing, and I've been starting a little bit more designing, and I just think actually it's quite nice to be able to design with a whole range of colours in front of you, rather than thinking, well, I sort of know I want some blues and pinks, but I can't quite tell from the computer screen which ones I want, and, you know, making guesses and sending off for them, and then they're not being what you thought they were going to be, and so on and so on. So these are, like I say, the classic Colourworks ones. I have got a set starting, I think, at the beginning of the alphabet, and I will show you what they are. Let me just see. I'm going to hold them up against this fabric just so you can see. So this is 12 grain. 12 grain. It is a slightly off-white colour. I think that's how I would describe it. I don't think you'd say it's got any actual colour to it. It is off-white. Okay, this is a beautiful colour that I don't think I would have ever bought. This is almost auburn. Almost auburn. And it's a really rich chestnutty brown mixed with a slightly greeny brown. It's definitely got a variegation to it. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, just about the sort of greenish and the reddish browns. Almost auburn. Amber waves. So this is one that I do already own, and that's inevitably going to happen with a subscription, and I'm fine with that. It's a sort of greenish goldish variegation. I used it when I was stitching the little frog that I just showed you. Amethyst. So pale lilac, variegated, I would say tonal variegated, some darker and some paler within the same colourway. Antique lace. Now this is one that I'm really pleased to have got. I don't think I would have ever ordered it because it's basically a white antique lace, but it's a really soft, lovely white that I think actually will be really nice to use to design with. So you know, that's why you get the subscription, is so that you get those colours that you think, I'd never have bought this, but actually I really like it. Apple fritter, I would definitely have bought this at some point and got around to it. Beautiful reds, a really sort of dark burgundy red variegated with a brighter, I was going to say crimson red, but it's not really, bluish undertones, slightly more orangey undertones. Anyway, really lovely. Argyle socks. This is a fun one. This is purple, and I don't know if you can see, it's not really picking up on camera, purple variegated with blue, sort of greyish blue, mid-tone purple. Nice colour. I can see flowers or something in that colour. Aunt Marie's violet. I don't love this one. I think it goes quite well with amethyst, actually. So amethyst, obviously the paler version of Aunt somebody's violet. Aunt Marie's violet. Slightly variegated, again very tonal variegated. I would say the palest colour of Aunt Marie's violet is slightly pinker actually, but about the same darkness as the darkest colour of amethyst. But you could definitely use those two together really nicely. Auntie D, we've got a lot of aunties today. Auntie D has very good taste. Okay, you really can't see that on screen. That is really deep navy blue with sort of a marine blue, dark marine blue. The navy blue is almost on the purplish end. Yeah, I think it's really lovely. That's going to make some really lovely shadow colours. And then finally we have Autumn Spice. Orangey, yellowy, what you'd expect from a colour called Autumn Spice, I think. Tonal variegated rather than thick variegation. So those are the 10 that came. You can subscribe, like I think if you subscribe for, I don't know, 18 months, something like that, you end up with the whole range. You can stop your subscription anytime. if you find that you're not using them or you don't have a purpose for them. But I think for the moment I quite like that as a way of adding to my classic Colourworks collection every month. Bought one piece of fabric in the last time since I last saw you. This is I think from Patchwork Rabbit. It is Picture This Plus Prank in 28 count linen, and I bought whatever that is, fat skinny, not fat, skinny quarter, I'm gonna say. I think that's about right, skinny quarter. And I have a plan for this. My plan is, okay, I'm going to talk about this at this point. I don't really have much to show you, but I will put 2 little pictures up there. I have been charting some designs based on bonkers animals from medieval manuscripts. I've got one design so far called cat snails. I told you, bonkers. They are literally cats with shells. And one design called elephantine, which is clearly people trying to draw elephants who've never seen elephants. Also quite bonkers. And my plan with those, I've worked on the charts, I want to stitch them up, and I've designed them with the idea of making them available for purchase in mind. So I've used quite limited colour palettes, like 7 or 8 colours at the most. I'm gonna stitch them up probably in DMC or Anchor solids, but I will give suggestions of other threads if that's what you want to use. But I think for the style of design that they are, solid colorways will work really well, actually. I think they will work quite well with a fun background color. I think certainly the cat snails will work really well on this orange. For the elephantine, I think I might need a different colorway to be in the background. Maybe a palish blue, something like that, blue-grey. Not sure, but anyway, I'm going to start with the cat snails and I'm going to do it on this. And if it goes well, watch this space. That is what I have to say about that. It's really fun. And if it, you know, even if it doesn't go well, I really like doing my own designs. I don't know whether other people will like them or not. A couple of people did ask about charts for this design. I did not chart this with anyone else in mind. It uses about 400 different colours, lots of which I don't even know what they are. They were just scraps that I had lying around. I did do a chart, but then I didn't stitch it following the chart. I made changes as I went along. I couldn't begin to write down the finishing instructions for something like this. I just think it's a non-starter really as a project to make into a sort of saleable or even a free pattern, to be honest. I mean, I could put the chart that I've got up on my website, but I think you'd have to do a lot of work to get from that to something that you were pleased with. So I don't really want to do that. But these, as I say, I have been starting to think about charts that other people might use, and it's really fun. It's really fun. So watch this space. We'll see. I don't know what sort of timescale we might be looking at. The 2 medieval animal charts are quite substantial, although the way that they are both designed, I think it will be relatively straightforward to make smalls based on portions of the chart. And what I might do, because I'm only going to sell them as PDFs if I do sell them, what I might do is generate PDFs based on small sections so that you can see, you'll get the sort of full chart for the whole thing, and then maybe 1 or 2 smaller charts based on part of the design that if you don't want to commit to the whole thing, you could stitch those. Right, a couple of other bits of haul from a D-Stash group on Facebook. I bought this, Annie B's Folk Art God Save the Queen. What I plan to do with that, I don't quite know when. It's not at the top of my list. What I plan to do with that is slightly amend the chart to make it fit in a hoop, and then it can go up on my hoop wall. You can't see the hoop wall, it's up here above my head. It is full, but Some of the things up there are a bit seasonal. I've still got my penguin up there from Christmas, for example. There's Here Comes the Sun, which, I mean, I'm fine with having that up all year round, but I think it would be quite nice, even if it's not really seasonal, just to have a stash of things that can go up there and be able to swap them in and out whenever I feel like it. Yeah, so I think that won't be too hard to make that into a circular design. I'll certainly do the bee and a little bit of that honeycomb pattern, and then work out how best to fit in. Maybe the text, it's okay if it's not the text. Maybe the trees, it's okay if it's not the trees. Maybe I just need to do something completely different. You know, maybe I just end up basically doing the bee itself and the crown and a little bit of honeycomb, and that's fine. So we'll see. Sometime I'll get around to that. The other thing I bought, just because it was in the same D-stash and I was really intrigued, were 2 cross-stitch calendars. Oh, I have a little bit of news about that actually. On my last video where I was doing the review of X Stitch magazine, in the show notes to that I put a link to their Kickstarter. I was too late finding out about it to include it in the actual video, but I put it in the show notes that they were running a Kickstarter for a cross-stitch calendar for 2023. I signed up, I backed it, I thought that's a thing I definitely want. I like their style, I liked the idea that they had behind this calendar. They were getting 12 designers, 1 a month, each using the same 12 colours as their palette to do the whole range of designs. Anyway, the Kickstarter didn't get funded, which is a shame. They are looking into other ways of possibly doing the same kind of project, maybe digital only rather than print. I'm not sure. If you're interested in finding out more about that, you can sign up to their email newsletter or keep an eye on their website. And if I find out, I will also let you know. Anyway, these are not from there. These are 2 calendars from Awesome Pattern Studio. I think they were 2020 and 2021. So obviously no use as calendars anymore, but the patterns are still there. And they're interesting. I don't think I will stitch loads of these. I might stitch 1 or 2, but let me just show you the sort of designs that came in there. So there was one of the years, I can't remember which one, that was all these sorts of patterns, different kind of animals mostly, with geometric and other patterns building up. So that was the owl. Let me see if I can find the other butterfly. The seahorse I quite like. I don't know why they're all called mandala, because I don't think that is what a mandala is. A mandala is a circular design, and these are not circular designs. Very cute koala. So I'm certainly not going to stitch all 12 of those. I might stitch 1 or 2. I might also use some of these papers for collage. I think they'll be really great collage papers. And I might also, definitely not in this video, I might use some of them as giveaways at some point as well for anyone who's interested. The other year there was a more variation in designs. These didn't have pictures, only the charts, so I will just sort of flash the chart very quickly. This is the one that I thought I was most likely to stitch, Wizard of Oz Emerald City picture, which I quite like. There's a similar one that way around of Paris. You can see the Eiffel Tower, Moulin Rouge. Yeah, and like I say, slightly more variation in those as well. So I didn't pay loads for them in the D stash. I've got a whole stash there of 24 patterns, of which I might stitch 1 or 2 maybe. But I was just interested to see what they were like. It's interesting actually, the one year you got 3 different charts, a black and white chart, a chart with symbols that are coloured, and a chart that's all colour. And then you got a picture and then the list of threads, 3 sheets for each pattern. And then the next year they obviously decided, it's quite a lot of printing and probably adds quite a lot of weight to the postage. And so then that year, all you got was 1 sheet with a cheap colour chart on one side, key for the colours on one side, and a coloured chart on the other side. It has symbols as well as colours. Anyway, that's my haul. Forgot to say, I filmed this Flosstube once before and then realised I'd forgotten like half of the things I meant to tell you. And indeed this time, I've also forgotten only one thing, I think. I just finished it and I remembered one thing. So one other thing that I bought, well, I bought some fabric which I'm going to use to finish the Doreen Jones travel set when I finish cross stitching. And as part of that order, bought some scissors. Let me show you these scissors. So they're very, very pretty, but this is the thing I really liked about them. No, put the hand that way, there you go. Do you see that? How they go into that little tiny point at the end. So these are not specifically embroidery or cross stitch scissors. These are by Tula Pink. I bought them from Lovely Jubbly Fabrics here in the UK. I will put a link below. They are not the cheapest scissors I've ever bought, but they are the nicest scissors I've ever bought, I think. They are so smooth. The cutting is so sharp. You almost have to check to see that you've really cut anything because you just don't feel it. It's like cutting through butter. Obviously they're super pretty. And that little tiny point at the end is just perfect for getting in tiny little places to snip off little ends and tricky things and so on. I like them so much I'm almost tempted to go back and buy others from the same collection. There's certainly a pair of dressmaking scissors. I think there's also some thread clips. I think there's also one or two other sizes of scissors you can get. They're not cheap, but I think they're really great. People pay a lot more for scissors than these. They were like maybe £17, I think. So like I say, not super cheap pair of embroidery scissors you pick up for £2 or £3, but also infinitely better than that. And it's one of those things, isn't it? You think your scissors are fine until you try something better, and then you're like, oh, these are just better. They just are. So anyway, Tula Pink, little scissors, sharp point, highly recommend. One other thing, the haul, this is not absolutely cross-stitch related. Somebody sent me a book token, like a proper old-fashioned book token the other day. And I was like, oh, I don't really know where you can spend that these days. Anyway, we do have a Waterstones on our high street where you could spend it. But yeah, I was like, can I spend this online? You can spend it online. And so I bought a couple of things, but only one of them's arrived so far. And it's a book I've been having had my eye on for a little while. It was quite expensive, and I thought, well, I've got a book token, I'm going to treat myself. And it is this, An Unbroken Thread, 150 Years of the Royal School of Needlework. Now, the Royal School of Needlework mostly is about surface embroidery, gold work, which is what's on the front cover, stump work, canvas work, black work, needle painting, all sorts of surface embroidery, not really cross stitch, I have to say. But it's a beautiful book, beautiful images of designs from 150 years ago, all the way through to much more contemporary things. Kate Middleton's wedding dress and a little close-up of the lace that they worked for that. With a sort of written history of how it came to be established and how it has developed over the years. And it's always been about empowering women in particular to gain skills which they can use to make a living. High level of skill for which they can charge a suitable amount of money. One of the things all of the sort of full-time students at the Royal School have to be able to do is gold work, and that is because whenever there is a coronation, they have to produce a new coronation robe within a relatively short timescale. I mean, like a year, but nonetheless that's quite a short timescale for this sort of work. And at that point, when that happens, it's all hands on deck, more or less. Somebody will have to commission the design relatively quickly and then as many stitchers who have that level of skill will be brought in to work on it. 18 varieties of gold thread. This little thing on the other page here, that is a little pincushion souvenir for the coronation, a small emery needle cleaner cushion made from leftovers of the silk velvet that was used to make the coronation robe, edged with gold cord and packaged in a special box. Sold at 17 and 6 or $2.50 on the Queen Mary. I would love one of those. Wouldn't you love one of those? I mean, I'm sure they go for a lot more than 17 and 6 or $2.50 these days, but yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing will be incredibly special to find in somebody's attic or wherever. So it's a really beautiful book, really interesting. I'm looking forward to reading it properly. And I do recommend that to you. There's also an exhibition happening. If you're in London, the exhibition is at the Fashion and Textile Museum. Not sure exactly when it finishes. I probably won't get to it. I've been to the Royal School multiple times before, and I think I will have seen already quite a lot of what's in that new exhibition. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to get to London to see that this summer. But the book is definitely worth having because it's got images of a lot of things that are not in the collection. You know, like the Duchess of Cambridge's wedding dress, for example. That's no longer in the Royal School's collection. A lot of their work is for commissions for clients, so that, you know, they don't keep it. But they've been able to get images of it to include in here. So that's that. What else have I been doing? I made this. This is a project bag. I'm going to make a quilt of Union Jack blocks. The pattern I've got is the Regent Street quilt from Diary of a Quilter, and it's quite a complicated quilt block. You can see it's even got the sort of narrow and wider strips here either side of the diagonals. So I thought, well, I'll just make a sample using some scrap fabrics just to get my eye in with the quilt block itself, and I liked it so much that I thought I'm going to make that into a project bag. It's a project bag really for knitting and crochet, so it's just got soft batting in it, and it's floppy rather than having any interfacing to keep it a bit stiffer. It's got a magnetic closure, and it was supposed to have a box bottom, but I stitched it the wrong way around and I'd cut the fabric off before I realised. So it's just got a rounded bottom instead of a box bottom, but it's fine. So I've been enjoying that. I think that's everything I've been working on, everything I've bought, and a little bit about plans. The next time I see you, it'll be a few weeks because I'm going on holiday. I'm going on holiday to the French Alps. In fact, I will put a link to this below. It's a wonderful place in the French Alps, which is a ski chalet in winter, and in summer they run craft workshops. A lot of embroidery, but sometimes other things as well, beading and textile art and so on. I went there 4 or 5 years ago for a week doing a textile art course, and I just really loved it. The hosts are so friendly and the food is delicious, and there's a lovely hot tub and the views are incredible. And they just announced quite recently that they were going to try a new thing. Instead of having a tutor, they were offering a couple of weeks which is just bring your own craft. So that's what I'm doing. So I haven't completely decided what I'm taking. I'm definitely going to take my sketchbook and paints and things for that. I'm definitely going to take a cross stitch project or two. I was going to take the Jack Rabbit from the Year in a Wood series, but actually I now think I might take the designs that I've been working on to see if I can get some good headway in those. And there might also be something that's a more sort of creative textile art as well. So I will be back in a few weeks with that. In the meantime, there will also be coming quite soon another Flosstube Extra review video. This time I will be reviewing down the rabbit hole cross stitch and needlework magazine that I came across quite recently. It's a digital magazine based in Australia. I'd not previously heard of it, but I thought it would be interesting to have a look at, and I definitely have thoughts about it. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let me know what you're working on over the summer. Will you have time to do more stitching over the summer? Will you be far too busy to do any? And if you were to design a cross stitch pattern, here's a challenge. I'd love to hear the answer to this. If you were to design a cross stitch pattern, what would you like it to be? What sort of pattern? Would you do a cat, or would you do a sampler, or would you do a saying? Would you do something very contemporary in style? If you could do anything, what would you love to design? Thank you so much for watching. Particularly thank you to the handful of new subscribers that I've had recently. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you'll stick around. And if you haven't already subscribed, now would be a really good time to click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, like the video, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much. See you next time.